parents brought me to this country when I was 4.5 years old. My family and I are originally from a town in Mexico in the state of Michoacan called Sahuayo, which means a turtle-shaped pot. It's a very beautiful town. It's full of tradition, full of culture, humble people with humble beginnings. I love my town. It's known for its artisanal work. It's specifically for sombreros, which are hats, and traditional shoes called huaraches, made out of local products. My father worked as a shoemaker making huaraches. You see, my father is the hardest working man that I know to this day. He would spend hours working to hand make these shoes. He would come up with new designs, new ways of them fitting people. He would work over 70 hours a week. His salary was about $10 a month. That was not enough. That was not enough for my father to provide for his family. There were times where we really did not know where we were going to get our next meal. That is known as food insecurity. Food insecurity, as defined, is not knowing where your next meal is coming from or how you will get it. It's also not having access to nutritional, healthy food. So what we would do is we would go to relatives' houses and eat, that way. Until my parents decided that they would pursue the American dream. My story is not an isolated story. There are many stories such as this. After all, the United States is seen as the pinnacle of prosperity in the world. As a matter of fact, we're a first world country. We are third in production of food in the world. So not having access to food is not possible here. This was my traditional lunch in elementary school, in grade school. Many of you may relate to this. How many of you have seen this picture before in front of you? Yeah. I was actually part of a subsidized lunch program. And what subsidized lunch meant was that I would get a ticket to go eat my lunch. While the rest of the kids would pay for their lunch, I had a little ticket that I would hold, something like this, so that I could hide it and have people think I had a $5 bill in. I would slip it and give it to the cafeteria employee. I was embarrassed. I was very embarrassed because that meant my family was poor. How many of you recognize something like this? Come on. I always wanted one of these. I always wanted one of these. And not just because you can have your favorite character on it. Mine were Power Rangers at the time, from the 90s. But because my classmates that owned these box lunches were never made fun of. They would go straight to the cafeteria, open it up, and then they would have these amazing food items. They'd have apples in there. They'd have these little packets with little gummies in the shape of the characters that were in front of their bags. I wanted one so that I would not be made fun of. I wanted one so that I could be part of that group. I went home to my mom one day and I said, could you just get me a packed lunch? I would really like to take my own lunch to school. She said, of course. I didn't know you would. Yeah, I could do that. She did. She made me a delicious, delicious bean sandwich. Refried bean sandwich. And she threw in a Coke in there. I was a third grader, a Coke was a big deal. I opened that lunch up only to know that everyone was still making fun of me. I didn't have all the really neat, gummies and fresh fruits, and my sandwich didn't look similar to theirs. So I had to decide one thing. I decided, do I continue to be embarrassed at the lunch line, or will I have my mother's lunch be ridiculed? Well, I would not stand for the later. So I learned how to become one thing: invisible. And invisible meaning I would not tell a single soul that I didn't eat that day because I forgot my lunch ticket. After all, what 9-year-old remembers to bring everything to school? No, I didn't. Invisible because I wouldn't tell anybody that it hurt my feelings when they would make fun of me in the lunch line. Invisible because I would just say, oh, I'm not hungry. I love sports. I'm going to go to the playground and play. I became an expert of student food insecurity early on. 25 years of experience, to be exact. I've been in school for a really long time. The toughest time was probably in college. College was when I realized it was all on me. I had no access to financial aid because I did not qualify. My parents couldn't help me pay for school. I was relying on a lot of ramen and $5 pizzas and sharing those with my friends at that. But in college was also when I learned that I was not alone. I learned that 1 in 9 people in the world go every day hungry. I learned that 1 in 6 people in the United States are hungry. And I now know today that 1 in every 3 college students on our college campuses are hungry every single day and have no access to food. This is really hard to hear because hunger is not an issue that we talk about. College students don't talk about it being an issue. They may say, oh, I'm kind of hungry, or oh, I'm not hungry, I'm going to skip lunch to go do something else. Let's talk about this today. Let's talk about it today. There has been a lot of movement throughout the United States on food insecurity, specifically for college campuses. There has been a lot of positive action done. There are so many campuses across our nation doing something about this issue. They are opening food pantries. They are collaborating with their communities. They're getting donations. They're trying to figure out how to solve this issue. And the model that a lot of the campuses are using is the student is in a crisis, so then we help the student. The student is in a crisis, and then we help the student. As I informed myself on all of that, and I realized, well, I kind of lived it. I guess no one would have known what I was going through unless I said something. So yeah, I guess that, yeah. Reasons a lot of campuses don't know students are in crisis are because they simply have no way of knowing. Because there's a culture that tells everyone to stigmatize the ability for someone to afford food. What if we flip this all across the nation, every single campus that's out there? What if we say, we are going to take a stand at every campus that every student, the moment they register for school, as a matter of fact, when we're recruiting them to come to our college campuses, that we make available to students information about how to obtain food. when they need it. We all breathe, right? We all use the restroom, right? It's information that should just be out there, instead of waiting for it to be a crisis and then giving out the information. What if orientations across the nation held information about how students could access food? I currently have the privilege of working for the leading college of equity and excellence at San Diego Mesa College. And I have helped to open up our food pantry here on campus. And recently, some of this work is taking on. We are going to be providing access first to all of our students. One of the things we've done is we've partnered with Feeding San Diego, and we will be handing out free produce to students every single month. Last month, we gave students 8,000 pounds of fresh produce. This is just an example of one activity that could be done on an ongoing, accessible basis. So I'll leave you with this. Let's change the culture with each other. Access to food is all of our issue. Let's change the culture with each other. Let's let people talk about inability to have access. And let's encourage other colleges, other campuses to flip the framework and start providing access first. Thank you.